Good evening. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:30. Will please rise for a moment of silence. And the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Carmody?
Here.
Fishbein?
Timing is impeccable.
Laughlin?
Here.
Regan?
Here.
Reynolds?
Here.
Tata?
Here.
Testa? She's not here. Morone?
Here.
Is Autumn calling in or no? She's not here today. Okay.
Thank you very much. Before we get to the consent agenda, so just so you know, item 3E has been removed from the consent agenda. Just a correction on that one, and then item 3F is off the agenda completely.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve or accept consent agenda items 3A through 3D.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, items removed from the consent agenda. So on the council rules, everyone received a copy of the revised document with the language provided by Councilor Laffin. The adjustment that I was looking to make to that language is in item 4. It says referred back to a special meeting of the council, and then I got cute and added some language to refer to another section in it. However, it's redundant because once it goes back to the council, then all the other rules apply. So I wanted to omit everything, the phrase for a vote and public comment is not mandatory, but may be allowed at the discretion of the chair, except as we're noted in 11B3. So I'll make that as a motion for a change in the rules. Any discussion on the motion? Any public discussion? All right, let's take a voice vote on that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Public question and answer. Please.
The motion that we just took, was that to adopt the rules or to amend what was before?
To adopt the rules as with the amendment.
Okay, so the amendment was just by assent,
Correct.
and then, okay.
Correct.
Got it, thank you.
All right, public comment. All right, seeing no takers, we'll move on to item 6, discussion of old business. Mayor, do you have an update for us on technology?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do. So we have closed the time for applications for the Information Technology Director. We received approximately 25 applications. Of those 25, 17 were deemed fit the job description. Those 17 are scheduled for oral exams starting next week, oral exams like a first interview. With respect to the town government-wide survey of technology, 2 weeks ago we met with the consultant to start its initial work with the administration, and in the coming week the consultant will be meeting with all of the individual departments to determine what technology is in place and then where we need to add technology to improve the function of the departments.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Good luck with that. Mr. Farrell, any updates on the Hidden Brook Lane situation?
Draft easements are under review at this time. That's what Janice said to report.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we weren't going to have the old business open to question and answer. We put on another agenda if you prefer. Or we can put it on a regular agenda if that was your desire. Mr. Farrell, so the clarification question is who's reviewing the documents?
To the best of my knowledge, Attorney Small is reviewing them.
Okay. Certainly can. Okay, yeah, we can address that at a different meeting. All right, item number 7.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the revision of emergency medical technician job description.
Second.
Good evening, Jim Hutt, Town HR Director.
Good evening, Joe Sutton, our fire chief.
Good evening, Chief. Mr. Hutt. Chief, did you want to take questions, or did you have anything prepared you'd like to address to start?
I would like Mr. Hutt lead off.
Sure. So the only change being proposed is to eliminate the 1-year work experience requirement. That's the only change being proposed.
Okay, questions? Councilor Fishbein?
Why?
So we started this back in 2020, and when we first went online with this revision to the ambulance transport units, and at the time, we had to fill 16 positions. This was in March of 2020. We had a list of 38 people. Most recent list that I'm aware of from December 12th of 23 had 2 applicants on it. So to meet the demand for service, and I'll let the chief speak to that a little bit more, but to meet the needs, the chief and I met, we discussed it, met with the mayor, and the chief is confident that 1-year experience requirement is not necessary.
Why is it not necessary? I understand we take in employees in various levels, throughout government, but at some point, somebody made a determination that it was necessary. And now we are here only because there's a lack of applicants, it appears, and we're lowering that requirement, which could be based upon certainly other things. So why is this not appropriate given where we are?
Well, I can speak to that, Counselor. When this division was started, it needed to be stood up very quickly, and we needed experienced people to come in. And 1-year minimum is what was determined to be the minimum criteria for at that time. Since then, we've implemented a field training evaluation program throughout the department where we've certified field training instructors. And those people would go through an orientation with the new folks that come in. And this brings it in line with all our other job descriptions. There's no minimum requirement for EMT for firefighter EMT or for firefighter paramedic.
So I would expect that there's going to be a budgetary decrease, because an employee that you're bringing in more than likely from a different municipality, a different provider, under the old job description, because they needed a year of experience, I think would be more valuable than somebody who has no experience. So are we changing the pay here as a result of that?
No, we're not. We're bound by contract. They'll all come in at the step 1. We have a CBA, we have a bargaining unit contract that determines what level people come in at. They all come in at step 1.
Okay, whether they have prior experience or not.
That is correct.
Okay, so what do we pay?
They started out, well, right now I can speak to, we just did a recruitment marketing program. It varies based on their FLSA because they don't get paid the same as firefighters. But last year, EMTs averaged about $78,000 a year.
Okay, and what was this? You recently did a recruiting program. What was that? What did that program consist of?
We market on social media. We go to the fire academy. We put on a listserv there. We go to paramedic programs. We go to EMT programs. And we're actively trying to recruit people. We're finding that the pool of candidates for EMTs and paramedics is very small. And we're competing statewide for this small pool of candidates.
Yeah, but just a year ago, you had 38, right?
That was 4 years
That was
ago.
about 4 years.
4 years ago. So when you say you're advertising on social media, what does that mean?
We have a flyer. We're telling them about the department. It's more descriptive than the job description. Is just very basic. So we tell them what the community's all about, that they're part of the fire department, how many hours they work, just all the points that we want to point out that make Wallingford a desirable place to work.
So when you say, so the fire department has a Facebook page that it advertises on?
That's correct.
Okay. And is there a website,
That's correct, yes.
a standalone for the fire department?
There's a standalone website, there's an Instagram, and there's a Facebook.
Okay. Okay. How are other departments working with this situation?
They're in the same boat. If you're up at the state capitol, you sit on the Public Safety Committee, I can tell the council here that EMS in the state of Connecticut regionally is on impending failure. There's a lack of people that want to get into public safety and typically emergency services. We're having a difficult time recruiting firefighters, paramedics, EMTs.
So I'm just trying to compare this job description to other municipalities that do this. Do they require the fire service?
No, they do not require the 1 year minimum.
Okay, so that when we did this, we were unique in asking for that 1 year?
That is correct. That's because we were creating a division from scratch. We needed experienced people.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Testa? Oh, I'm sorry, did you have your hand up? Okay. Anyone else on this topic? Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, for our benefit, can you just talk about how an inexperienced EMT will be paired or grouped versus somebody coming out and a year or two of experience? You can probably just toss them in a truck with a crew.
Sure.
And now how you'll handle somebody fresh out of
Right.
training.
So typically now when we start, we do a minimum of a 2-week orientation period where they're on a five-day work week. And they're usually ride as a third person on the ambulance. Their skills are evaluated by the field training instructors. They document it every day. We also have an EMS lieutenant who oversees the division, which is very effective, and they continually evaluate that person. The same thing will happen with an entry level. If we get entry level, it's just opening up so we have a bigger pool of candidates. They may be extended on their orientation period a couple of extra weeks. They will ride third until they're deemed they can be appropriate for a second person on the ambulance. And then once we believe that they have the appropriate skill sets to act as a team with another EMT, then we'll assign them to a platoon and they'll be on a rotating schedule.
Thanks. No, I support this. I think it's just a necessary reaction to the supply and demand of the market for those
It is.
staff. So, thanks.
Sam?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen. I just had a quick question about how many openings you have. I mean, how many positions are you trying to fill?
Currently, I have 3 openings, vacancies. They are due to those 3 people getting career firefighter jobs. And that's sort of the intent of the program, is to provide opportunities for people, and if they aspire to go into fire rescue division, that's good. And they have to test for it. But that motivates some of the individuals. Some individuals come in, they want to be career EMTs. But we get a lot of younger folks. And recently, just within the last couple of months, I promoted one over to our fire rescue division, and we lost 2 other to 2 other career fire departments.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chief, just a couple of quick questions. When you say that 78,000 is the salary, is that's including their overtime, or is that the base pay?
That's including the overtime.
Okay. And so having not hired to train, what do you think the cost, how long would you anticipate before someone could be, say, a standalone member if you just came in with the certification and nothing else?
I would say about 4 weeks.
Okay. All right, very good. Any other questions on this topic? Any questions from the public? Sir? Mr. Garlick, name and address for the record, please.
Eddie Garlick, 8 Bumbaco Drive. Evening, everyone. I'm not that familiar with the ambulance committee. I was hoping maybe the chief can explain their role. And are they somebody that you would go to with questions like this? Is this a good idea? Would they have recommendations, even like a recruitment retention thing? I don't know their role, so I'm asking.
No, the ambulance committee is oversight. They essentially set rates. The state recommends rates to the municipalities or the ambulance organizations. We meet, we give them numbers, how many transports we do, how many runs we do. Then they typically will vote on whether to accept the rate, to not accept the rate, or to make a new ambulance rate.
That's their only charge. That's their role.
That's their main charge.
I appreciate that. I didn't understand that. I had some questions for the last time the chief was here. I think the meeting was cut short, or the question and answer period didn't happen. Would it be okay if I ask?
Briefly, sure.
All right. The chief, you brought up shift strength last time. Could you explain how shift strength relates to the minimum requirement by contract, the number of people that have to be on a shift, as opposed to shift strength?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if this relates to why we're here.
So I kind of have to agree with the chief, unfortunately, Mr. Garlick, because we're kind of off the beaten path now.
No, that's why I asked, because the question and answer period didn't happen last time. So I figured I'd give it a shot, but if that's your ruling.
If you have other questions, though, and you want to forward them to me, I'm happy to send them to the chief for a response.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? All right, back to the council. Oh, please, Jesse.
I just wanted to clarify, so 78,000 on average includes overtime. So without the overtime, what would someone be?
I would say their base salary is in the 40s.
Are we competitive with other towns regarding this amount?
Well, when we look at what they make, we might be slightly below, and most other agencies are private, for profit. They will pay more, but we offer a better working conditions, a better environment, working for a municipality, and also working with a fire department. So that's the incentive over there. So there's a trade-off with that. But certainly, I think in the next couple of years across the board, in order to promote people to get into EMS, you're going to see a marked increase in salaries.
And thank you, because we see a lot of discussions about affordable housing and what housing costs. Somebody making $40,000 a year without working overtime can't afford to rent an apartment in our town. So that's also something that we should consider.
Correct. Yeah.
In terms of, if we want people to work here and live here and want to stay here, they have to be able to afford that. And so I'd like to hear more about, what we could do in the future to improve that situation. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that'll be developing, Councilor, as we go along, trying to get people into this trade. And these people, we can't lose sight of the fact that they're actually out there saving lives.
Well, if I could, we just going through the pandemic where we were identifying people as heroes. Well, we're now supposedly out of the pandemic. Well, people are still heroes, so they should be compensated as such, I guess. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the council? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Harmondy,
Yes.
Fishbein,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Regan,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Tata,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Marone.
Yes. So the motion is unanimous. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Number 8.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the appropriation of ARPA funds for municipal projects in the amount of $996,000 to Revenue Federal Grant account number 2391002-45200 and to ARPA Municipal account number 2394032-58830 to be determined.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Councilor Fishbein?
AMEN. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Councilor Tata?
I'm not really sure what that meant, but I just wanted to, I'm getting notes explaining this. Oh, amen. Oh, got it. All right, amen. Second.
Say it out loud.
I just want to thank Mayor Cervoni. Some of these items have been on here for a while, as you all know. With our last budget, there were items for the fire department to get their UTV that they've been asking for several years. One of the volunteer companies is getting a gear washer and dryer. So those are just a few of the items in here that we've been kind of asking for a while. So I just want to thank Mayor Cervoni for getting this done. There's also some other items that I think are good for the town, some maintenance items. I believe the town hall roof is being fixed with this money, which is something that we've been talking about, obviously long overdue. So in my opinion, great use of the funds, things that we needed to purchase that we now do not need to ask for taxpayer funds for because we're using ARPA. So thank you, Mayor Cervoni, for getting this done. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Lappin?
Thank you. How much money then after this will that leave from our 13 million?
Approximately $2.6 million.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Tessa?
Thank you. I noticed from the memo we received from you, Mayor, that you mentioned that in a very near future, there'll be further discussions about other suggested uses. Is that the only plan we have at this moment going forward for use of the remaining ARPA funds?
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
We do have more projects. This was pulled from the list that department heads forwarded to Mayor Dickinson late 2022. Some of the projects on that list have fallen off because they were paid for with other funds already. So I'll be looking again at that list. My intention is generally to try and fully fund items that were on that list with ARPA. The only thing on this list that I am part funding is technology, because I anticipate that it'll be more than we're looking at here. But I will be coming back to the council with suggestions for how to spend the remaining $2.6 million. We have to have that money committed by the end of this calendar year.
Thank you. And that leads me to this just comment to my colleagues. As you know, I'm not the only one who's felt this way, but we've talked for a very long time about having input into how the remaining funds are spent. So there's a likelihood, and this is not anything negative reflective on the administration, because that would be their job, to suggest how to spend the rest of the money. And then we would be approving it. I would like us to be involved in the discussions and the suggestions about how we might use that money. And that goes back to the beginning of ARPA, when I said I would like us to put together a list of things we would like to see done, and we've never got there. So this might be an opportunity to do that. So it's food for thought as we move forward. I have no question that the administration will work with us on this, but we do need to take the initiative to ask to be at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the council? Oh, Mrs. Tata?
Thank you. Just for the benefit of the public, because it wasn't noted in the motion, I just wanted to state what the list is comprised of. So $500,000 is the town hall roof, $250,000 is for technology, $35,000 is office renovations for the health department, it looks like. $100,000 is for Prigman Park. $35,000 is for the UTV for the fire department. $11,000 is for the gear washer and dryer for the fire department. And $65,000 is for the sound system in the council chambers for government TV. So that is what makes up the $996,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public? Mr. Michaels?
Evening, Jason Michael, Meadow Street. I just have a couple questions. The first one is, believe me, I don't know many people who will be happier when the roof is fixed here, but when do we approach rainy day funds, if not for the rainy day problem? So, like, how does that mechanism work? We're taking $500,000 out of this ARPA fund. We have an abundance of rainy day funds in our savings account that the taxpayers fund every year. What constitutes a reason to take that money out for something, anything, other than patching the budget to balance it? Was there a reason that this wasn't spent from that fund, leaving the ARPA money that's probably more flex? In other words, are we losing any flexibility spending $500,000 out of ARPA opposed to taking it out of the rainy day fund? Is there a qualifying factor to take that money?
I guess if you were looking for my opinion, I would say that the ARPA money has a deadline on it. And so we need to find a use for this money essentially by the end of this year, I believe.
Right.
Correct? Okay, so I think the goal would be, a big project like the roof, I think would be appropriate to take it out of the ARPA money, and then you have $500,000 still in the rainy day fund to potentially spend on something else, if the mayor and the council were agreeable.
Right, so that's I guess what I'm getting to. So what does it take to, if someone had a project or an idea that needed $500,000, is it harder to get it from there than it would be for this? Because obviously, I mean, that's our rainy day fund. This problem happens on the rainy days.
Yeah, I mean, when you say harder, I mean, if both parties consent, meaning the council and the mayor, then it's not difficult. But if you don't want to spend the money on it, if one of those parties doesn't want to spend the money, then it becomes difficult. So,
thank you. And my second question was, we just heard the list from Councilor Tata. What are the details? Do you know the details? $100,000 for Pregnant Park? Do we know what it's for?
I did know what it was for.
I'm happy to
Please.
fill in that gap. So the project at Pragman Park is to reconstruct the basketball court for post-tension concrete. That court is aging, plenty of surface cracks, and it's reached its useful life. Beyond repair, it's time to replace. Additionally, both hoops are aged, backboards need to be replaced. So that's basically what that $100,000.
Okay, I was just, because it wasn't
it's actually
the backup, or because it just didn't say for what, that's all.
It's actually, we believe it's going to cost a little bit more, so we may be coming back with another request to fill that. I think there's a 30% increase on that.
Because I think that brings our post-tension concrete basketball funding north of $450,000. A lot of dough for 3 basketball courts. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Bringing it back to the council? Seeing no further questions, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Carmody,
Yes.
Fishbein,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Regan,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Tata,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Marone.
Yes. So the motion is unanimous. On to number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight's vote to utilize available ARPA funds for long-needed infrastructure repairs, coupled with the previous approval to issue an RFP to capture the needs of 7 of the town's 23 buildings, signify tangible progress being made right now in tackling our infrastructure challenges. While I don't want to rehash the debate that led to the committee's formation a little over a year ago, and this is regarding the Building Maintenance Committee, it was formed with the following charge as its scope, and I quote, "The committee shall periodically visit and inspect all town-owned properties, excluding Board of Education facilities, and report to the town council on the condition of said properties, including any potential problems and/or concerns, and advise how said problems and/or concerns should be addressed. The council reserves the right to assign priority properties for immediate review." This committee and those like it empower our residents, encouraging them to take an active role in maintaining our public assets, instilling a sense of pride and ownership. Our community members bring a wealth of knowledge and skills that are critical for efficient and effective maintenance strategies. I do note, in many cases, the professional management of public buildings requires specialized knowledge and expertise that may go beyond the scope of community volunteers. It is a delicate balance, but the outcomes delivered by the combination of the two are, in my mind, worth it. Quoting one of my colleagues during its formation, it is an accumulation of information. Simply put, having more data is always better than less if it doesn't get lost in the noise. I would like to see the current members, if they are willing, and with a little less noise, continue for at least the rest of this calendar year, providing substantive data for the administration to consider when making decisions on projects we will need to undertake. With that, I'd like to make a motion to reinstate the Building Maintenance Committee, whose term expired with the last administration, with a new term ending December 31st, 2024, with the same members as previously approved, with the same charge as previously stated. Thank you.
Second.
I heard a second from Councilor Testa. Discussion on the motion? Mr. Testa?
First of all, thank you, Councilor Reagan. Very well said. I share your feelings on this. I think I'm optimistic so far with the approach being taken by the administration to move forward on addressing infrastructure issues. So I think that the type of cooperation we would hope for between the council and its appointed committee and the administration is something we can look forward to and expect. And that's why I believe that it's a good idea to do this. One question. Normally when we appoint a committee, it's for the duration of our term. I don't know if it's necessary to put a deadline on it as of December, but if you feel maybe it's let's see how it goes, and if that's your idea, that's fine. But is there any reason why we wouldn't just reappoint them as we would and for our term? What was the thought behind that?
Sure, Councilor Testa. A couple of things. I think the administration is making gains in respect to the infrastructure improvements, et cetera, for this, and is on a trajectory to really handle the majority of the visible and some of the invisible, the majority of the projects that are that we're taking a look at that sorely need the help. It is my hope within the next 12 months that we have the ability with the use of technology to stand up a citizen portal where they can report active issues that they see from time to time from all different perspectives, and then perhaps have Department of Public Works prioritize those projects, which would take the need of a separate building maintenance committee and merge that into a single stream that the administration can rely on. So with that, I understand that we can make it to the end of the administration. It just seems that that's a few years from now, even though it's a little bit less than that. But to put some time limit on it, knowing that at any time we can extend or we can disband. It just seemed to be a useful date in my perspective to see, and as a checkpoint as to where we are at that point in time at the end of the year.
Thank you. Fantastic. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Tata?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I was for the committee last time, at this point, I don't see the need for it. In 6 months or so, a year from now, maybe we see things aren't happening and we want to jump in. I'm certainly all for that. But at this point, I'm actually very pleased so far with the new mayor, the new administration. I think that he's been looking at a lot of things that we have identified as issues in the past that we never really got moving. So I think to add another level of bureaucracy at this point, I don't see it as being necessary. I just want to give the administration some time to get things going, to see what they're going to do. And as I said, the last time we had this committee was in response to things maybe not happening at a speed that we all wanted to see. I'm confident now that things are happening actually quicker than I had thought. So I'm comfortable for now holding off on this. Certainly willing to look at it again in the future if we see a need. I don't see the need at this point. So I appreciate the motion, but at this point, I'm not for it at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fishbein?
So I am in support of the building committee continuing. When it was originally appointed, we didn't say, your timer is going to run on a particular date. We just appointed a committee. So I would be in favor of just, reappointing the committee and let them do their stuff. I remain concerned. One of my examples is the historic train station. What came before us during the last term was that on October 22nd of 2022, that building was signed off on as being okay. And then the building committee is created. They bring to our attention many significant things. And it appears in the newspaper. As a result of the newspaper article, the fire marshal goes down there. And a new report comes out that says the building is not just bad. There are certain portions that have been habitated for years. It shouldn't be. That wouldn't have happened without the building committee. That's of concern to me. I don't know what other areas in town are like that. I know the building committee was prepared to make a presentation to us at the end of the last term about things that had been fixed by Public Works. And I'd like to know about those things, because certainly the only presentation that we got had a lot of very concerning things, pictures about things. And, I haven't driven around town and checked to see if we still have those safety hazards at our parks. And I know that they've looked at other areas and wanted to bring some things to our attention. And I'm always interested in getting information. I don't see anybody pining to make that presentation to us today. The only people that could is those that did those reviews. And I found those that presentation that was made to us to be very helpful in learning things that should be done in this town. I think putting an arbitrary, no aspersions meant by that, date on their tenure would be inappropriate, because that could be utilized as I think it was with the last term. Oh, you're going to expire at the end of the term. You're not going to exist anymore. Therefore, you can do whatever, but it's not going to matter. I don't think that's fair to the individuals that have volunteered to do this on their own time for the benefit of our town. I do appreciate the strides that the administration has taken in various of these areas, but I think many of us recognize that there are significant things that need to be dealt with. So I would be in support of the motion that's before us. I would like to have it just appoint the committee, and if this term runs out and whomever takes over for us in the next term decides it to be inappropriate because they went by osmosis, so be it, or we could codify it in an ordinance. But I did find a lot of value in the building committee, and I would like to see them move forward. So Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is that an amendment or not quite?
I'll work together with my colleague if he's willing to work on that. I'm certainly, but I'm not going to. I mean, it's his first motion, and I'm not going to play games with my colleague's first motion. So I've made my position known.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Laffin?
Thank you. So I'm going to try and be brief on the record, and I think the votes are already all there, the same as they were last time, right? And I opposed the creation of this committee last time because of what I was afraid of is it's what happened. It became used as a political tool, more overshadowing some of the accomplishments or objectives of what the committee was actually going out for. Now we discovered, and we have some really stellar people on this committee, like people that we've never even had really that involved before, came out of the woodwork from both parties or no party. And these are all great people. And we have vacancies on committees and commissions. It's not like we don't have other places for these people to actively use their skills and talents to help our town. This has nothing to do with the committee or even some of the results that they came up with. But the council continues. We have no authority or jurisdiction over this. And I know in the past this was created at its base level by those of best interest at heart because of a worn relationship or some mistrust. And we're not even giving the new administration a chance, even though they've come out of the gate to request a new position that we approved, to work with Public Works to basically property manage some of the key properties. And I kind of would like to see what this guy does in addition to the other efforts. I mean, we're in month 2 of Mayor Cervone's administration. And now we're going to hire this guy who's going to walk in and have a committee of people that don't report to him, but are supposed to kind of work with him. Are they overseeing? Are we oversight? Or like, what's the real relationship? I mean, I know more information is always good, but in what hands? Like, what are we going to do with it? And unfortunately, in this case, I really felt like the noise was so loud that it detracted from everything. The noise was used to vilify, to blame, to bring employees in and try and professionally hang them and accuse them. Like, we needed to point fingers and blame somebody for things. I just want to get away from that. We have such a positive forward motion with the new mayor working with the Department of Public Works to create a new position. I think that is a more positive angle to approach. And I would be more open to not having this committee last a year, but to start in a year if we really have a problem with how it's going. And that would have to be, we're trying to talk to the mayor, and he's given us the cold shoulder, and we're trying to find some sort of voice or influence. And I'm just not sure that this is the most effective way to do it without meddling, without, as Councilor Tata said, creating more bureaucracy and taking up resources that could be used, and not just time, but our volunteers' time, then the professional staff time, when they're not entertaining. I don't mean entertaining like clowns juggling. I mean when they are hosting the committee and their properties. So I remain opposed to it, and the only way I think I could hedge on that would be if we were really looking at this a year from now, and the chances did not come to fruition, and we had a lot of, you guys can all say I told you so, the same way I'm trying to say it about how it became this political show last fall. But I stand against the vote tonight. Again, I love all the guys on the committee, and I know we already have some that are on other committees as well, or commissions. We should use them as resources there too, but I think in a different direction than this committee is right now. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I think walking into the meeting tonight, I was sort of like on the fence about this. the committee was initially, I was appreciative of the committee initially because it was born out of sort of an utter neglect, for lack of a better word, of some of our town facilities. And, you walk around, you look at things and you see, we're not looking for experts, right? I mean, I could walk through this building and you can see the holes in the walls, and you can see the water coming in through the brickwork and so on. And so I think that was sort of the genesis of the committee. I think that the current mayor has done more probably in 3 meetings in terms of maintenance in general than we've seen in the past 3 years that I've been on the council, right? So when we talk about a political tool, I mean, anything that this council does is political to some extent, right? And I don't see it as a tool as much as it's information. Work got done because of the committee that would not have otherwise been done. I mean, that's just a fact, right? And that's work on behalf of the people of the town. So political tool or not, it was an effective tool in bringing about positive change. While I agree that you need to give the mayor a chance, to develop sort of his approach, and I think we've seen some really positive steps, like a deep review of the buildings. I mean, to me, the deep review is going to get into what's it actually going to take to fix these things, right? Nuts and bolts, and cost estimates and such, which is not ever what we ask the committee to do. We ask them to look and say, yeah, like there's a hole in the wall, or there's a crack here, or there's these kinds of things. So I really appreciate the work the committee did. When my fellow councilor talks about empowering the community, empowering volunteers with pride in their community to provide us with information, I think that there's something really genuine and valuable about that. I think, so I sort of look at the relationship between this and the prior administration and the committee. But I think in a functional democracy, you could have people that looked at things and provided feedback to government about things that were broken without it being adversarial, right? So a lot of towns have committees that do these kinds of things, and I think that this is what I'm hoping this committee will sort of blossom into, is working with, Public Works and working with the mayor's office to sort of like point out areas, and perhaps the Public Works and the mayor's office will welcome sort of something's broken, we didn't know about it, but now we know when we can address it. So I think all factors considered, I think it's, you could focus on it in the sort of a negative light, or you could focus on it in a positive light, what it could become. And I think it's, I appreciate Councilor Regan bringing this up. I think it took me some time to get settled into this role and decide, sort of look at the things I knew were broken and point a finger and say, yep, that's broken. So I appreciate, here we are in month 2 and he's taking the initiative. So I really appreciate it. Anyone else on the council on this item? Mr. Reynolds?
I, as someone who's volunteered a lot in town, the last thing I want to do is take a group of people who have a lot of things going on in their lives and then put them on an errand that wastes their time or doesn't produce anything. Other than that hesitation, I don't have any hesitation in voting in favor of this, because I think that all of these things can happen at the same time. I as somebody who works with numbers, I always look for a second set of eyes. As somebody who's written things that are published in medical journals, mistakes, errors, things, these are all, it's helpful. And I think as a council, we can take sort of the baton with that and make it into something that becomes helpful. We have the ability to say where to go and who to talk to, and they're at our direction. So we set the tone, and I think that we could work with the administration. I think we could work with Public Works, Parks and Recs, and everybody else to set the tone to make this thing be something that works for the town, that takes advantage of a skill set of people that I was very impressed with when I was sitting in the audience and not up here last term. And, I think that while I can certainly respect the progress that's being made and Councilor Laffin's points regarding that, as well as Councilor Tad's, I do think, though, that the way that I felt that the way that the committee had ended was they weren't allowed to sort of go through the final process of sort of demonstrating what had happened. And I think we at least deserved that. And I echo Councilor Testa's sentiments that I think it could be a 2-year term, but I will revert back to I don't want to make anyone volunteer to do nothing for 2 years as well. So that is my caveat. But thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Carmody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to echo a lot of what has been already said, but I've been very impressed by our new mayor. I think he's really hit the ground running when it comes to issues that we've been discussing for years, technology, infrastructure. And so, I too was on the fence walking in here tonight, but I realized I think an extra set of eyes on our town properties is not a bad thing. And to use a word that Councilor Fishbein used, I think the committee has been of great value over the past year or so. And so I'm going to support them being reappointed, but it has nothing to do with our new administration. We're in a completely different time. And again, I've been very impressed by the way he's handled these first 2 months. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fishbein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Assuming that the committee is approved to continue, it still has the power, really, that any one of the members of the public have. They are merely a recognized group. Even if this group was not continued by vote of this council, a group of people can get together and call themselves Better Wallingford. 5 people who go to town parks and they take pictures of things. And they come to us and they say, this is a problem. You intend to deal with it. That's essentially what the building committee's done. Because we're not hearing that, and I'm not asking for, we're not hearing that the doors will be open to non-public areas. It'll be the same. So the only thing that this does is it recognizes a group to be able to present to us their concerns. So I don't see the harm going forward at all. And I'd like to see people working together. I don't agree on the political aspect of the whole thing. I didn't see conflict. I saw a presentation that I thought was very neutral in its presentation. This is a picture. This looks like a problem. How did we get there? That falls on our lap. And that's our job. Make sure people feel safe in town properties and working in town properties and things like that. And, certainly if it becomes a problem and there is conflict, please, people out there, people watching, let us know. I'm hoping it doesn't get to that and we continue to work together collectively for the betterment of our town. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. Tata.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This may be for the administration, this question. So I'm just wondering what properties would be left for this group to look at that were not already looked at when this committee was in place with the last council and that aren't going to be covered by the consultant that we just hired at the last meeting. I don't know if that's tough to answer off the top of your head, but.
That's tough to answer off the top of my head.
Because if we take the schools out of it, I'm just trying to think myself. If the schools were never included, so we have none of the school properties. I'm thinking of the ones they already looked at, and then the ones that the new consultant is going to be looking at. And I'm having a hard time figuring out what is still left. Or maybe another counselor has it.
Well, so my take on it would be, though, that you wouldn't necessarily have to look at every property once and then be done. I mean, if you had a major project at the property, you could continue to review it and then, if look for defects and such.
I'm pretty sure that the last, I think many of the items that were addressed with the last committee we had Mr. Baltramitis here at the last meeting and he had addressed a lot of them. Obviously, the train station is ongoing. Just when Councilor Reynolds brought up not wasting anyone's time, I started thinking in my head what's still left, and I'm just not sure that there are that many left that this consultant that we're hiring is not already looking at. So that's just maybe something we can figure out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the council? Members of the public? Waiting for it?
Jason Michael, Meadow Street. I'm going to try to come from a place of grace, which is difficult when you've chaired the committee that's being talked about and possibly will be on again. But I'm going to try to speak a bit from that committee and for future committees of which I won't be a part of. And I think a lot of the maybe confusion that's happening by comparing the consulting firm, which I applaud the mayor for going ahead and getting, and the building maintenance committee, they're two completely different objectives. They're not the same. One doesn't replace the other. One doesn't even encroach on the other. If you can imagine, let's just throw numbers around, that we hired this consulting firm and they looked at every single property in Wallingford and they came up with a number of $15 million. $15 million and you can fix everything. Perfect. That doesn't eliminate the need for a group to keep an eye on it. We're in this mess because we weren't keeping an eye on it. So if our buildings are perfect, how do you keep them that way if no one's checking on them? So if this group, if their task is to walk around and look at things and take pictures and report them, well, that's value doesn't diminish a year out from now or 2 years. In fact, it gains value because things get old and things break and things fall apart. So to compare the two as one would replace the other, I think that's off base. I think the consultant is obviously going to be professional at this, and of which, for defending the old group, we sent it to you in writing the minute we saw things that were out of our depth and suggested strongly that you bring in professionals to look at these things. So we're well aware of our limitations, but those limitations don't disappear with a consultant group coming in one time and whipping through town. I think the value is in the future of the committee. And if it can be maintained on a straight tack, non-political, because I've heard that enough to the point where I've decided to try to figure out who made it political. And it was the politicians who made it political, not the group and not the public. So if you're going to go down that road, you guys appoint all the committees, commissions, groups, right? So how are they not a big fear of being political? I think that takes care of that. As you appoint, there's mayoral appointed park and rec commissioners to be signed in by the mayor. So that kind of eliminates that for this group. And like I said, I'll just reiterate that we operated right down the middle. And if we happen to go forward again, and everybody chooses, including myself, to keep going, that's the way it'll keep going. And if it shines poorly on one group or another, then that's the way it shines. It's not us steering a mirror to make it look a different way. And I would advise anybody who does this after our group or after me that they handle it the same way. Because it's, like Councilor Fishbein said, it's black and white. Window's broken. You know, there wasn't a Republican standing in Doolittle throwing a rock through it or a Democrat pushing a stick through it. Window's broken, fix the window, you know? So I just think that to compare the two groups is a bit of a mistake. And to use politics to push an opinion one way or the other with this group, especially this group, is also a bit of a mistake. But thank you, Councilor Regan, for bringing this up and for giving me the time to talk about it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public?
He is. Bruce Conroy, Burke Heights Drive. So, he said it, and so did some of the counselors, Craig, Sam. We got where we are right now because nobody was watching, nobody was saying anything. And when people were saying something, members of the public, nobody was listening. So you all made this commission. They stood up, gave a presentation, then people listened. Then something happened. So, you want to just leave a blind's eye for a year or two and then maybe form it again? Why not have them do what they do? Keep going on if everybody wants to be involved or find new people. And keep that tool in your toolbox because that's what it is. Information, knowledge gets you what you want. An efficient, well-run government that doesn't miss or fall down. How many of you, not you, Jesse, said, oh, I didn't know it was that bad? Do you want that to happen again in 5 years or 10 years? Listen, I sat down and talked to Vinny. I think he's going to do a good job. But the information we get isn't to attack him. It's not, because he's new. I think he is going to do a good job. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for that. But he is. I have faith he's going to do it. So this is just more tools, more knowledge. So and I got to tell you that no matter where we do it, and especially in the private sector, listen, I've run jobs that were worth $10,000 or $100 million. And I have a group of people who come by and tell me what I missed, what I did wrong, and what needs to be fixed. That's all we are. Just a group of people who giving you a little extra knowledge. As for the political thing, listen, neglect becomes political. Can't be helped. It can't be helped. But when it's getting addressed, it turns into something good for the people addressing it. We just want to help out. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Mr. Morgenstein?
Good evening, Larry Morgenstein, South Main Street. I wanted to ask some things in terms of clarifying some issues. If the commission, the board, the building maintenance is reappointed and reinstituted, there's been talk about the scope of what they're doing. Councilor Tada talked about, well, the buildings that the consultant would review. I would think we would want to get clarity in terms of why wouldn't their scope be what it originally was? Why would they be excluded from some of the original buildings and not others? So I think when you guys are voting, before you vote, what is the scope again? And the second point in terms of clarity is that originally when they went out, it was my understanding that when they went to certain buildings, there was certain access that they were denied. And I think it's important going forward, what is the access that they'll have? Are there areas that are off limits? Would this administration be more open? And the last one in terms of allowing more access. So before you vote, I think that's something that in terms of what is the scope? Again, do you leave it the same? Do you want to make it more specific? And I do hope that you'll reinstate the committee. I think, again, let it play out, and hopefully with a new administration, maybe they become relics, that they're not needed. But at the same time, let's get there first, and then we could talk about relevance. But we're not there yet. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mr. Borgenstein actually asked a good question, and that is, when you said reinstatement, in my mind, Mr. Regan, I was thinking you meant same membership, same rules as before. Was that your intent?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Same charge as well.
Same, right. Okay. Anyone else from the public? Sir?
Make sure you know. Jeff Tilbrook, Pogmore Drive. As our previous liaison on the committee, on the council, is no longer here, who would be, if we are reappointed, the liaison?
Well, that's something we can discuss. Anyone else from the public on comment? I'll bring it back to the council. Any more questions on the council? Mrs. Tadden?
Thank you. This is why I never make up my mind before the meetings. I still stand by everything I said. I still think we need to, I would like to give Mayor Cervoni and the administration a chance to get going and see what they're going to do. But you're all very convincing that maybe these two things can happen at the same time. So I now find myself maybe in support of this. And again, I didn't want my previous comments to ever think that I wasn't appreciative of the last committee. Certainly am. My thought was just to give the administration, 6 months or so to just see what they were going to do on their own. But maybe having two sets of eyes on it isn't the worst thing. So anyway, thanks for all the comments and being convincing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fishbein?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a question just came up about a liaison. If the committee would have, and if the body would have, I would certainly be willing to be that liaison, should that need present itself.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I don't know that we have to decide that tonight. I was just going to say, if you were interested, let me know, but certainly you would fit the bill. So if anyone else is interested, you can let me know. Otherwise, we'll consider Councilor Fishbein the representative. Assuming that this passes, of course. Mr. Regan?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to throw my hat into the ring as well.
Okay, certainly. I mean, I don't know that we need to vote on it as a body tonight, but we can talk about it.
I'll certainly defer. I should have done that to begin with, but I think that would be a great thing. Thank you.
Very gracious, Mr. Fishbein. Any other questions on this? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Carmody? Fishbein?
Yes.
Laffin?
No.
Regan?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Tata?
Yes.
Testa?
Yes.
Marone?
Yes. And the motion passes. Seeing no other business on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned.